For the record, there was other music besides disco in the 70s, but we're going to go with that.
Nah.
We're going to continue now our look back. We're going to do it all morning, in fact. Las Vegas in the 1970s. Look at all that empty land around the Las Vegas Strip. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
The 70s saw the creation of the MGM Grand, the Holiday Casino, the Nob Hill Resort. The average room rate in the 70s here in Las Vegas, just over $30.
Oh my gosh.
Elvis, Wayne Newton, Charo, and Margaret, all headliners during the 1970s.
Wow, it's a cool decade. The Las Vegas Stadium opened in 1971. You might know it as the Silver Bowl and now Sam Boyd Stadium. It cost $3.5 million to build back then and originally only held 15,000 fans. Well, it's been home to UNLV football, but also lots of concerts, rugby, soccer, motocross, monster trucks, all that. The stadium has even been home to a couple of pro football franchises, including the Las Vegas Outlaws of the XFL and the Las Vegas Locomotives of the United Football League.
UNLV basketball hit the big time as well in the 1970s. Look at this video. The team joined Division I in 1970 and saw a lot of quick success. The Runnin' Rebels made an NCAA tournament 3 times in the 70s, including their first Final Four appearance in '77.
In fact, they played at the convention center, which was this round thing before they before the Thomas and Mack was
round thing.
Well, it was, I don't know what they called it. Remember that one? Okay, well, we know that every decade in Las Vegas brings so many changes. For all the bell bottoms and disco that rocked the desert in the 1970s, there were 2 huge cultural shifts that we take for granted today. One of them was the beginning of the end of the mob.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tangiers Hotel proudly presents the all-new Sam Rothstein Show, Aces High.
Remember that scene from the movie Casino where the Robert De Niro character Sam Rothstein had his own Las Vegas TV show? That's because De Niro's character was based on the real-life Frank Lefty Rosenthal, who did have his own weekly TV show during his time as a casino executive at the Stardust.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Rosenthal.
To think that he could go on the air every week with a talk show and be accepted and admired as a celebrity in this town is now, in hindsight, vulgar. It's a joke.
That was Larry Levitt, who was a federal prosecutor back in the 1970s. He was part of the 1987 Channel 8 documentary, The Mob on the Run, reported by the late legendary Ned Day. To put all this in perspective, we went to a man longtime Southern Nevadans should remember as our governor in the 1980s. He was Nevada's Attorney General when these critical cases involving the mob and casinos came to a head. Richard Bryan.
I've often heard it was better when the mob controlled everything. That is not correct. The mob didn't care as long as they were left alone. If you keep your nose clean here in Nevada, that's fine with us. And so I think there was kind of in the community, well, we know that they had mob ties. I think the extent of the skim, that sort of thing, I think, came to as a surprise to many.
The senator and I also traveled back in time to 1973 when the police department of the city of Las Vegas merged with the Clark County Sheriff's Office to form what we now know as Metro.
And the idea of merging those, I think, was to save money to the taxpayer and to create more efficiency. The cultural differences took a while. I mean, obviously there were differences, but the merger, I think, essentially worked quite smoothly.
Karen Kernut spent 30 years as a civilian employee with Metro, and she saw those early cultural differences firsthand.
At briefing, the city would sit on one side and the county would sit on the other. And when they would come up from the basement, from the briefing rooms, you would see the county on one side and the city on the other. And eventually they realized that they're one department and they became friends.
That was the first SWAT team in 1973 after the merger.
Oh, wow.
Karen had some great stories about her early days with Metro. We didn't have time to put in the story, but we're going to get them up on our website. Thanks also to Senator Bryan, not just an eyewitness to history, but a participant in what we take for granted today.
Yeah, well, he played so many roles in our history in the state.
Yeah, in the early 70s, he was a Nevada state senator in the legislature when they were talking about the rules needed to allow that merger between the Las Vegas Police Department and the Clark County Sheriff's Office.
And by the the way, you referenced that documentary, The Mob on the Run.
Yes.
If you are a fan of Las Vegas history, it is absolutely worth watching. It's online. It's available to watch. It's deep, deep Las Vegas history. We love it. We're going to be looking back at the 1970s all morning long. Tonight, Ted Florenda will have a look at how Las Vegas moved away from the dusty cowboy town into the glitz and glamour that we see today. For example, Sherry Swensk. Glitz and glam.
Yeah, right.
In the flesh.
Hey, wait a minute.
Where's
The
your showgirl
70s.
outfit?
Wait a second.